Good morning and good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Educate to Motivate and Inspire, co-organized by the RESTEM Initiative and the Saith M.R. Jaipuria School in Patna. My name is Meghana Chamarty, and I am a Girl Scout Junior with the Girl Scouts NC Coastal Pines. The goal for today's webinar is to talk a little about the importance of STEM in education and inspire you to pursue a career in STEM. So with us today in the webinar, we have Mr. S.K. Baduri and Mr. Avanish Kumar, who will be supporting this webinar from a technical point of view. If you have any issues with your audio or technical connection, please do not hesitate to send a message in the chat window. And thank you so much all for being here in the webinar today. Will we be able to share the PowerPoint as well?
Yes, sure.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, perfect. To start with, let me give you a little introduction to the RESTEM Initiative project. RESTEM Initiative was started as a part of my Girl Scouts Gold Award project. Ms. Almodovar, who is our first speaker for today's webinar, will speak more about Girl Scouts and its importance today in a few minutes. The mission for RESTEM Initiative is to minimize the rural-urban educational divide by enhancing STEM education for the rural community and preparing and motivating and inspiring the students for real-world occupations in the STEM field. Inadequate rural education is an issue faced at varying degrees by every nation in the world. Barriers to quality education have increased due to the current challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. Our goal is to minimize the rural-urban educational divide by enhancing STEM education for the rural community and inspiring them for real-world occupations in the STEM fields. RESTEM Initiative is working to mitigate this issue by creating hands-on STEM kits for students from rural and undeserved communities. Currently, we are also working with some schools in rural schools in Andhra Pradesh. So moving on to the webinar, Ms. Almodovar from Girl Scouts will be our first speaker, followed by Dr. Christopher Roy, a professor at Duke University, and concluding with Dr. Jeffrey, an assistant professor and researcher at UNC Chapel Hill. Dr. Jeffrey was unfortunately unable to be here with us live, but we will be showing an interview I had with him earlier this week. After our panelists speak, we will have a question and answer session at the end, where Dr. Roy, Ms. Almodovar, and myself will be answering the questions from the panel of students, teachers, and parents. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Melissa Almodovar. Ms. Almodovar is the Senior Mobile Program Director for Girl Scouts of North Carolina Coastal Pines. Prior to working at Girl Scouts, she was also a soldier in the United States Army. Melissa provides program events and training throughout the 41 counties of North Carolina. As a resource for troops, the mobile program brings fun and inviting program opportunities to our Girl Scout members in the 5 main areas: STEM, leadership, healthy living, financial literacy, and the environment. Without further delay, here's Ms. Almodovar.
Hi, kids. I am so happy to be here with you. I guess it's evening over there right now, right?
Yes, right. It's 4 o'clock, 4:30 here.
So I'm on the East Coast over here, like Megan and everybody else. So it's like 7 o'clock in the morning over here. So we're just getting up. You guys are ending your day. We're just getting up. Thank you for that introduction, Megan. So that saves me a little bit on what I do. If you can see my virtual background, I changed it so you guys can actually see. This is the inside of one of our mobile classrooms. So when she said what I do is I'm the Senior Mobile Program Director. So I was actually hired for Girl Scouts to create a program where I can travel all over our 41 counties and bring programs to under-resourced areas and outreach areas. So basically kind of what she's doing for you guys there in STEM, bringing programs to kids that can't get programs in their area. So I deliver programming on site, their troops, at events and things like that. So I am able to work with the kids every day. Actually, I will be going out this evening to Goldsboro and teaching robotics tonight. So I will have the opportunity to be going back on the road. We have been closed down because of COVID. Obviously, we're under COVID strict adherence here too. They won't be able to go into the vehicles, but we are finally getting back on the road and being able to do some of that stuff. So that gives you a little idea about what I do and opportunities that I get here. Let me tell you a little bit about Girl Scouts. So Girl Scouts, of course, is an organization, all girls. They start at kindergarten, go all the way through high school. And any girl can become part of Girl Scouts. I think the misconception of Girl Scouts, obviously, especially over here, is all we do is sell cookies and do crafts. Well, that is so not true. And I'm sure Megan is laughing because she's like, yeah, that's what everybody thinks about us. But we don't. Our girls are so well-rounded, and we have a major focus in STEM nowadays. Obviously wanting to fill that STEM pipeline, knowing that through not even just the United States, obviously throughout the world, the amount of women in STEM field is so much lower than the men. That we do focus a lot on our STEM initiative and putting STEM programming out there for young ladies. But the opportunities do and are there in Girl Scouts, and we try to make them well-rounded. As you can see, Megan has said earlier, I do not teach only in STEM. We teach healthy living, we teach leadership skills, outdoor environment. We want our girls to be well-rounded members of the community when they do leave our program. So that gives you a little insight about Girl Scouts. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, but Girl Scouts is also part of a program called WAGS, which is the World Association of Girl Scouts and Girl Guides. So where you guys may not have Girl Scouts there in India, you actually have guides in India. And you guys actually are the host country to one of our 5 world centers. So India hosts our Sangam World Center, I think that's how you say it. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I am so sorry. Sangam. Does that sound right? Sangam?
Right, right.
Okay. And that World Center is actually down in Pune, India, and is a World Center that can be visited. Unfortunately, like right now, it is closed down due to COVID. We do have it shut down, but it is a World Center that can be visited by anybody. And that will give you also a little more insight on what Girl Scouts is and Girl Guides are within your country. And how you yourself can get involved within the community or within scouting alone, or Girl Scouts or Girl Guides alone within your country. And I know that the Sangam has a lot of volunteer opportunities and opportunities to go out within the community and do community service. So now that we're talking a little bit about community service, usually within Girl Scouts, we have all these different programs that you're able to do, journeys and badges. And that I'm not sure if Megan is wearing her vest today. I don't know if she is. All right, so I'm going to scoot over here just a second. I will grab a vest. So this is what Megan's vest should look like. Should be like this, if you can see it. I'm sorry. I know I have that screen. And girls earn badges and stuff. And when they earn those badges, they are fulfilling requirements. And within this requirements, usually the fifth step, that requirement requires some type of giving back or some type of service to the community. So we try to instill, even within our programming, a way for the girls to give back to the community and how important it is to give service to the community, not just for the community, but for yourself and your own self-growth. Okay, and the importance that it instills in you as far as growing as a leader and being independent, and obviously, just the great feeling it gives you just to be able to give back to the community. So with that, with each tier going throughout Girl Scouts, when you get the higher up levels, starting at juniors, you can earn awards. So at juniors, you can earn your bronze. At cadets, you can earn your silver. And now where Megan is, you can earn your gold award. Gold award are meant for our senior and ambassador Girl Scouts. And out of all the girls eligible, only 7% of our Girl Scouts actually achieve this award. It is the highest award you can get in Girl Scouts. So that the fact that Megan is achieving it and reaching it is a goal in itself. So applaud to you there. It is very sought after when college applications are looking. They do look for Gold Award Girl Scouts when they are looking. The Gold Award basically is an accomplishment Sometimes it takes 1 to 2 years for a girl to accomplish her Gold Award. It is a program that she has to create that is sustainable and gives back to the community. So whether it's the community here or what she's doing for you guys over there, creating this sustainable RESTEM education program, it has to be a sustainable event. And not only does this benefit the community, but also it benefits, not benefits, it services Meghana in the opportunities that she's getting and learning how to create a program for the community that is sustainable, that can further her later on when she is out in her field or her career field, deciding on programs, things that she has to create that's going to benefit the world later on. Okay, so the Gold Award in itself prepares these girls for real world experience and the work it takes, the research, the volunteer time, and all the amount of time that she has to put in creating this Gold Award, and to achieve it. It is kind of a real world job, huh, Meghana? When you put all these factors together. So to be able to achieve that highest award, which is, I said, our highest award is very commendable. So that kind of gives you a little bit about Girl Scouts. It gives you a little bit about what our highest award is, what Meghana too is doing here today as part of her Gold Award, Girl Scout. Volunteering in a whole, is important. It's not the highest importance, obviously, with Girl Scouts. Our girls are, making well-minded girls, but it is a big part of them because even our system itself is built up with volunteers. Yes, I'm a staff member and I'm a program director and I am paid to work for Girl Scouts, but we couldn't do our job without our volunteers. Our troops are led by volunteers. Our programs sometimes are led by volunteers. If we're running a training, sometimes that's led by a volunteer that we have trained ourselves. So it's really important, for even our program to work, to have volunteers that are willing to step up and give their time to our Girl Scout community, because even ourselves are a community here. So, we talk about giving of ourselves, community in a whole, but we as Girl Scouts are a community here, and people give of their time to us as a nonprofit organization, delivering their time and their efforts here with us. So our organization wouldn't run without our volunteers that we have in our system, to be able to help with what we do. And again, as we nurture our girls, we hope that at some day and some point they'll come back and say, you know what, I love my experience as a Girl Scout. I want to be a Girl Scout leader for my kids, or even if they don't have kids. We have girls that are leaders that don't have children at all. I want to come back and give a little bit of my time and be a leader for a troop and help mentor and guide girls like I was guided along the way. So that gives a little bit about that. As far as, getting involved in your community, the first step is always just going out there and raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm willing to do it. I want to be a volunteer. I want to help out. And that can be in any aspect. That can be going down to a local animal shelter. That can be helping out at a nursing home, even if it's just sitting down and spending time with the elderly, or even just writing cards and sending cards to those that are, stuck at home, things like that. So volunteer services and volunteer community come in so many different ways. Everybody thinks, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to volunteer. There's always a niche for everything. So don't assume just because your schedule is completely packed that there isn't something for you, because there's always something that somebody can find for you that might fall into something that you might love. Maybe you love computer programming, maybe, or something like that. Maybe like playing the computer. Somebody might need a list typed up. Somebody might need something else done. And there's just volunteer opportunities for everybody everywhere. So I think I don't want to run over my time. I know I only have 10
You're
minutes.
fine.
I could talk Girl Scouts forever, as you can tell. So I will pass it back to Meghana, and obviously I will be here for the Q&A after. If anybody has any more questions about Girl Scouts and what we do, what I do. But it has been a joy to be able to be here, speak to you about Girl Scouts community, what volunteering is, what Meghana's Gold Award is. And again, I'll be here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Almodovar, for sharing about Girl Scouts, volunteering, and the Gold Award. I would like to now introduce Dr. Christopher Roy. Dr. Roy is an associate professor of the practice of chemistry at Duke University. Dr. Roy grew up in Vermont and realized at an early age that he was fascinated with chemistry. He trained at the University of Vermont and Virginia Tech and is an organometallic chemist. When Professor Roy isn't on campus, he is spending time doing research at the coast, working on isolating compounds that are potentially anti-cancer agents for marine organisms. Without further delay, here is Dr. Roy.
Thanks, Magana. That was a nice introduction. And if you guys can't tell, I'm sitting here at the coast right now watching an amazing sunrise and doing a little bit of research as well. So as mentioned, I am an associate professor of the practice in chemistry, also in education, which is why this project has got such a great interest for me. And I'm also a professor of marine science and conservation. That's what brings me down to the coast. So my areas of work, as Magana mentioned, are in the isolation of compounds from marine organisms, mostly invertebrates. I'm not a big fan of having to deal with things beyond plants for the most part. We are really starting out. This is a new project for us, but we think it has a lot of potential because, as you guys know, the ocean is one of those places that we haven't explored that much. It's an untapped resource in a lot of ways. And ultimately, it's one of the places I think that we have a lot of potential for not just anti-cancer activity, but all sorts of compounds that might have some sort of pharmacological activity, antidepressants, antibiotics, and things like that. So as you guys probably know, that there is a need for lots of those different kinds of compounds, and it's exciting work. And if you can't tell, I've always got this little smile on my face when I'm thinking about doing some of this science. There's a series of prompts. I'm going to try to address all these questions, and maybe it'll start fostering some questions you guys might have for a little later on in the Q&A. I teach courses in organic chemistry. So if you guys aren't comfortable with what that area is, organic chemistry is specifically the area of chemistry that focuses on carbon. And it seems like how can you have a course that focuses on just one element? But you guys know that carbon is a really important element, right? Life is based on carbon, and carbon has this really cool ability to bond to all sorts of different things. And as mentioned, my PhD is actually in organometallic chemistry. So I sort of did my PhD work focusing in on looking at how carbon and metals interact. And some of the compounds I made as a graduate student when I was doing my PhD at Virginia Tech had a lot of anti-HIV activity, and that's sort of what got me into thinking more about the area of medicinal chemistry. I love working in science. And if you can't, and my students always tell this, my enthusiasm about it is sort of infectious. You guys can't see it, but my hands are going while I'm talking about chemistry. And my favorite part of working in chemistry and science in general is just this idea of always trying to think about how things work. You know, how do we see these phenomena that go on in nature, these things that we see, a sunrise, and, and that's not chemistry, but there's physics associated with that, right? And atmospheric science and things like that are associated with the beautiful colors that we see. And those kinds of things, even as a young child, always sort of fascinated me and ultimately really got me thinking about wanting to study science, even though I will tell you all that when I started my career as an undergraduate, I really thought I was going to go into medicine. But that's really part of what got me excited about the idea of science, is that as I was working on my chemistry degree and I started getting in the laboratory. So this is one of the things I absolutely adore about physics, about chemistry, about biology, is there's all this cool stuff to learn, things to read about in books, problems to solve, but then you've got the experimental aspect of it as well, right? You're in the laboratory. And, the idea of having to set up equipment, design experiments, the doing something really new, something that nobody has ever done before. So that's part of the idea of earning a PhD, is you're doing research in some area that nobody else has really looked at. You're the expert in that field. And while it might be a very small field, and organometallic chemistry is a relatively small field, there's some really important things that happen. There's some really important things that we discover, and those things that we learn and we can move on from and help develop foundations for other people who build on your work. the idea that getting a PhD. So one of the things that I had to do, and Melissa, I think, talked about this with the idea of volunteering, is that when I was an undergrad and you start thinking about medical school, certainly in the United States. So I'm a pre-health advisor at Duke as well. So I talk to a lot of students who think about wanting to go to medical school, and those are fun conversations for me, because that's really when I was that age, 18 to 19, I started thinking about wanting to go to medical school. And some of the things that we talk to students about doing are these volunteer things: community service, clinical volunteering, spending time in a hospital, doing research. And what I found when I was going through that process is that I really enjoyed being in the laboratory, and I didn't really enjoy being in a hospital, which is an important thing to learn, I think, when you are considering being a medical doctor. And so I ultimately decided that maybe getting a PhD in something medically related. So my organometallic chemistry, I'm also sort of a medicinal chemist as well, certainly in the things that I do today with the research I do at the Coast, is very related to medicine. I actually have a colleague who I do my research with who's an oncologist. So when we isolate compounds, I give him the compounds, and then he actually takes those compounds and runs them against different cell lines, against red blood cells, and then looking at different cell lines of bone cancer. So the working together with somebody who's in the medical school sort of has allowed me to fulfill both my dreams, the idea of doing research and the idea of being related to medicine. I think the important thing to recognize is that all the STEM fields, the future of the world. I mean, a lot of the problems we're facing, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's climate change, looking at cancer research, all the other diseases that we are trying to develop cures for, that a lot of the problems that we're facing today, the answers to those problems are going to come from people who are doing research in STEM fields. And I think it's important. I think Melissa alluded to this as well: the underrepresentation of women in the STEM fields. This is really important that you guys, grab a hold of the opportunities, and this project that Magana is working on is a great way for you to start thinking about whether you're interested in science and wanting to follow that. I mean, it's a phenomenon. I mean, I know I'm biased because I love science, and I get so excited about it. The opportunity to sit here and talk to you guys, just not just about my chemistry, but about science in general, is just, for me, one of the greatest opportunities, because I get so passionate about it, and I get up in the morning and can't wait to study and get in and teach. And that was one of the reasons that I pursued a PhD degree as well, was because not only was I passionate about science, but I was hoping that I might be able to instill some of that passion in students. And the courses I teach at Duke, the large general chemistry class, the large organic chemistry class, my smaller organometallic and inorganic chemistry classes, I really love that opportunity to help students see all of the great opportunities and the importance of science, technology, engineering, math, all of these disciplines, and how important they're going to be to all of our futures. I think the most important question, Magana had given me a bunch of questions, and one of the most important questions she gave me was the advice I might have for students who want to pursue a career in science or teaching. And I highly encourage both of those pathways. There's nothing more rewarding than watching that light bulb go off above a student's head when they finally start to understand a really difficult concept. The being passionate about something, to me, it's more than just the science fields. I mean, it's anything. Study something that you are really, really passionate about. When you can get excited about what you're doing, what is it, the old saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So I often feel that way, that I have not really had to work, because I love what I do. I mean, the awe and wonder of science, I think it came to me when I was young, probably middle school age, where I was fascinated with magic. Always wanted to be Merlin. Never wanted to be, if you guys know the story of King Arthur and Camelot, I never wanted to be King Arthur. I never wanted to be one of the knights. I wanted to be Merlin. He was the cool guy, sort of in the shadows. He had his potions, he had his magic, and I was always fascinated by that. And to me, as I moved through and started learning about biology and chemistry and physics, really chemistry and magic seemed so closely related to each other. the fact that there's things that go on that we try really hard to explain, and we're still trying to explain them. And I think that's the fascination with science. And so hopefully, if you guys start seeing that, the cool projects that are going to be available, the awe and wonder, the awe and wonder of science, and that if you can foster that awe and wonder, and you can hold on to that awe and wonder, and even though sometimes the science gets a little difficult, the struggles through it for the reward on the other end are so worth it. So I only did about 10 minutes, but I think I addressed most of the things that I wanted to. And I just, I hope that you'll have some questions, and certainly would love to talk to you about fields. I'm sorry, the paths in science and all the other opportunities that might be available when you get to study science. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Roy, for sharing about teaching chemistry, STEM, and just kind of like how to approach going into the STEM fields. We will now go on to our next panelist, who is asynchronous today. So we will be showing a video interview I had with him earlier this week. Dr. Jeffrey is an analytical chemist and assistant professor at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, which is really close to where Dr. Roy works at Duke. His research primarily focuses on applications of electrochemistry to the study of nanoscale biological systems. Jeffrey has received numerous awards recognizing his work in nanoscale electrochemistry, including being named one of Forbes 30 Under 30 in Science in 2019. Since Dr. Jeffrey wasn't able to join us today, we will be playing a video that he prepared for you all. So, so what is your favorite area to work in, like your teaching and research background?
So I am a chemist by training, and chemistry is divided into these subgroups: organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, analytical chemistry. And I'm an analytical chemist, and analytical chemistry is often called measurement science. So we develop new measurement methods that can make measurements on new and exciting compounds or properties of those compounds that could also be important. And further going deeper, in analytical chemistry, I'm an electrochemist. And so I study the interaction of electrons with molecules that are in solution. And so I also teach graduate electroanalytical chemistry here at UNC. I also teach an instrumental analysis class, and our research is we study things from developing sensors for emerging environmental micropollutants and studying biology at the single cell level. And we also study single molecules just one at a time because we're very interested in their reactivity.
Okay, so what first got you into this field of chemistry and just science in general?
So I think my grandpa was a metallurgist at Indiana Steel and Wire. I'm from Muncie, Indiana. And I remember talking with him on the phone. He and I spent hours on the phone and talking about the cosmos and lots of stuff about science. I mean, he was a super patient guy to give me all the time that he did to talk about these things. It really interested me. But there's one memory that I have on the phone with him where he told me that in a battery, it's possible to take water and make hydrogen and oxygen out of water, and you can then take hydrogen as a fuel and burn it, and the combustion product of burning hydrogen is water. And I thought that that was so beautiful that you could potentially use electricity to take water, split it up into hydrogen and oxygen, and then when you're ready for the fuel again, you don't have carbon emissions or anything. Your only product is the water. And I just thought that there was something perpetually beautiful about that. And I think that's eventually really what got me into wanting to learn more about how electrons and electricity interacts with stuff that's in a solution.
Yeah, that's really cool. So like, what is your favorite part about working in science and research and teaching?
So the students, hands down, the students are the most exciting part. It's so cool to see a student come in not knowing anything about electrochemistry and just go up on the learning curve. And eventually they learn a lot of stuff, and they start to creatively pursue their stuff. And the fundamental stuff is just it's very curiosity driven. For instance, sometimes now I'm starting a habit where I go into my lab, I get everyone together to kind of do a group project, and what I was blowing bubbles the other weekend with my daughter outside, and I started thinking about how thick the wall of a bubble actually is, and whether or not we could come up with a few techniques to measure that thickness. And so, for the past week or so, a lot of us have been working on just sticking wires into bubbles and trying to make measurements. And so I think that students are the most exciting part. And then just the idea of being able to curiously explore some of your own ideas is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So like along the lines of like looking at things in the world and applying them to your research and just trying to figure out how those work, how would you say like experiments and labs like help that process?
So the experiments tell us whether or not our hypothesis may be correct. And sometimes it's very disappointing because we learn very quickly that nature does not agree with our hypothesis. And we have to take her for her word because she's spent billions and billions of years creating everything that we see now, right? And so I think that experiments play a huge role in everything that we do. We're always making observations, and trying to develop experiments to explain those observations, I think is a lot of fun because you're always learning something. Even if it isn't what you think it is, you've learned something from that. And so I think that doing experiments, and we do, all of my students and postdocs do experiments, several experiments in one day, just to try to probe whether or not their hypothesis can be not necessarily true, but if they can get evidence to support their hypothesis or not.
Okay. So another question I had was, getting a PhD degree is really difficult, and it's so like, what motivated you to pursue a PhD and get that level of qualification in your field?
Well, I think that, so I've always wanted to teach. And I wanted to be a high school chemistry teacher. And I realized back where I was in Indiana that not too many high school students really cared about chemistry. And at the same time, when I was studying to be a teacher, I fell in love with just doing research. Wonderful undergraduate advisor who basically showed me that an undergraduate can go in the lab, and I have several who have first author papers, have won national awards. They're awesome, the undergraduates. And I could be the first person in human history to make a specific observation. Now, many people on Earth might not care about that observation, but just the power of potentially being the first ever to do something and see something was rather overwhelming. And so I think that made me fall in love with research, and then I pursued a PhD. I pursued a PhD because I wanted to creatively pursue new knowledge. Now, I don't think that physicians do this very often, and so I often have my daughter, call a person with a PhD doctor, and someone with a medical doctorate a physician, because I really think that having a PhD teaches you how to increase all of human knowledge, maybe by a little dent. But your job in graduate school is to do something that's never been done before and increase all of human knowledge. And that really excited me. And so when I got into the PhD program, I did just that, and I really loved it. It's a lot of work, but at the same time, it's really rewarding work, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's amazing. What do you believe is like the future of STEM, and especially during like this coronavirus? I think STEM.
It's a difficult question to answer, and I'm sure that everyone has their own very good answer for this. And to me, a lot of we need money to pursue the science we pursue. And so we write grants to federal agencies, and then we can get money, or more often than not, they say no. And then sometimes we do get money to pursue ideas. But there is a little bit of a problem there, in that generally you're writing proposals and pursuing projects where there's an interest, either from the federal government or from some private foundation. And there's a problem with that, in the sense that, remember I told you that we get really jazzed about curiosity-driven science, where we can go into the lab and we can mess around with bubbles if we want one day, just to see what we find. And it might not help society. That's not our motivation. It's just a curiosity, right? We just want to play around with it. And so the way that the political structure or the bureaucratic structure is set up around funding for scientific endeavors, I think really limits the curiosity-based science that's actually happening, or could happen. The fundamental science, like no one knew the atomic experiments that were being performed would eventually develop into the GPS that we all use today, or the end goal of the experiments leading up to penicillin was not to develop an antibiotic that would save the world. It was because some scientists were in their lab and they were just curiously pursuing their own thoughts. And there is a little bit of beauty to that. But of equal merit is setting out to solve a big societal problem. Take the glucose sensor for diabetics, for instance. Diabetes was a really huge problem. It was a death sentence 100 years ago and more. And now people live with it because there are really robust sensors that you can wear and that can deliver insulin as well. And so this product has helped humanity in a very, very great way. And so what I would like to see is probably different from what will happen in the future of STEM, but I would like to see governments also recognize the fundamental science can lead to really great discoveries down the line. And I think that science is more and more becoming inclusive, which is amazing, because diversity in science, I have a very diverse group, and it's wonderful because everyone has their own they have very different backgrounds, and because of that, their approaches to scientific problems are different. And when you get all of those people together, you can tackle some really hard problems because they work together. They all have different approaches, and this variety really sets the stage for some impactful work that can be done. And so I guess that's my answer to your question.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times, like, people don't realize that one person didn't discover the whole thing. It was kind of research that led up to that. And I think that's an interesting way to think of it. Another question is, what advice do you have for these students who maybe want to pursue a
get your feet wet, someone who will allow you, as I bring in high school students in my lab. Hopefully at some point you'll come to the lab as well after the pandemic, but everyone's treated at a very similar level. There's always the opportunity for success and growth, and finding an environment that nurtures that is really important. So really, my advice is to just start. You don't get anywhere unless you start. And then once you have the experience, it might be for you, it might not be for you, but I think it's important to find an environment where failure is expected. I mean, you have the freedom to fail, because in science, 99% of what we do is failure. And it's fun failure because we're still pursuing our ideas. We have that ultimate goal in mind. You get frustrated sometimes if you fail too much. But I think that especially the academic system in the United States when I was going through school was very much structured such that failing is bad and you need to memorize and regurgitate knowledge. And that's how you learn. And that is so completely opposite of how it should be. Failure happens more often in life than success. And learning to cope with that early on, I think, is really good. But especially in science, you have to expect to fail and persevere through that. And also in our academic system in the United States, there's an emphasis on memorizing and spitting back information, and not so much an emphasis on really understanding a topic. And I think that because you want to get all A's, and I had a 4.0 throughout my school, and I really cared about getting all A's. But looking back, I cared more about getting all A's. I cared more about not failing. That it was difficult for me when I got into science to be okay with maybe getting a B or maybe getting a B plus or an A minus, right? And so the real world is not so cut and dry as an A, a B, a C, a D, and an F. The real world, especially science, failure is encouraged and failure is beautiful. And if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough and persevering enough. And so I think that moving forward, it's important to keep that in mind, to embrace failure as a learning experience.
I think that's great advice. So on that note, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with us. And
for sure, Megana. Thank you so much for asking me. I'm sorry I can't be there with all of the students, but I'm really excited that you're putting this together, and I'm sure everyone appreciates.
Okay, on that note, this concludes the panelist portion of the webinar. We will now have a live Q&A session with the students, teachers, and parents who have some questions for Ms. Almodovar, Dr. Roy, myself, Ms. Razmi, and Ms. Razmi will be introducing the student, teacher, and parent panelists. So over to you, Ms. Razmi.
Thank you, Meghna. Okay, students are waiting for asking questions. So now I'm inviting Nanika of Standard 7. Nanika of Standard 7, she will ask question. Nanika?
Good morning, ma'am and sir. My name is Nanika. May I ask you a few questions?
Yes, Nanika. Yes, Nanika, you can ask. Nanika, ask only one question because we have It's time limitation. Okay, so ask one question. Yes.
If we integrate STEM in learning, do all aspects of science, in technology, engineering, and mathematics have to be present in every activity?
So Dr. Roy, would you like to take this question?
I assume it means the activities that you're developing.
I believe she was asking, in general, when integrating STEM in learning, do all aspects of science, technology, engineering, and math have to be present?
You know, that's a really good question, and in some regards, yes. Often, I mean, not all of them, but often you'll see math as being a foundational basis for chemistry, for physics, for some aspects of biology. You know, when you're doing chemistry or physics, often engineering is involved in that as well, because you're having to put equipment together, you're developing an experiment. So I don't think that all the different disciplines are necessarily all inclusive in every aspect, but certainly multidisciplinary. That's what physics, biology, chemistry, that's what those natural sciences are, all with a mathematical foundation. So there is a lot of overlap, but not necessarily all aspects in every discipline.
Thank you, sir, for answering my question.
Thank you, Nanika. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm inviting our next student, Jay Chaudhary, very brilliant student of Standard 7. Jay Chaudhary.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Jay, ask your question.
Good morning, sir. My name is Jay Chaudhary. May I ask a question?
Yes, Jay. You can ask question, and if your mother wants to ask some questions, if she has some query, then she can ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, Jay, ask your question.
Nanotechnology. This field fascinates me. Can you help me to understand what are the opportunities in this field?
I guess Dr. Roy can take this first, and then Ms. Almodovar, if you would like to add. He was asking if he's really fascinated in this field, what kind of opportunities are present for those who are passionate about this area?
I'm sorry, I missed, what was the particular area?
STEM.
STEM.
Oh, I mean, STEM is, I mean, that's yeah, I mean,
Particularly technology.
Yeah, I mean, what opportunities aren't available? I mean, technology is a very general term. But I mean, the rapid advances we've made in science and mathematics and engineering are all based on technology. Essentially, the opportunities in, with computers becoming more, I mean, you got to remember, I grew up in an era where we put a man on the moon using, less computing power than somebody has in their smartphone. And look at where we've come with medical technology. And so the opportunities, there's not enough time in the month to go through all the opportunities that are available. I think the idea is finding something within that technology field that you're really passionate about and following that.
I'm going to agree with Dr. Roy. You find an area or even a business that you're passionate about. So I'm just going to, of course, my niche is Girl Scouts. You find that niche that you like, even if it's a group that you enjoy working for, I can guarantee you are going to find that technology or STEM aspect. So here at Girl Scouts, we have an IT professional, Ryan Davis, that runs all of our IT. He runs all of our projection systems. He installs all. So this projection system that you're seeing in this classroom, him and I installed that together. This is a projection system with inside of a moving vehicle. So we have done these things together. So depending on what you're passionate about, whether it's installing IT systems, writing coding, even my job in general, because I get to develop, and I wrote and developed the program, I get to explore different aspects of the STEM field daily. So I got to explore robotics and write the robotics program for the mobile classroom that I deliver. And I work with a humanoid robot delivering this program. And when Dr. Roy was talking about the different aspects overlapping, they do. In this robotics program, I work with humanoid robots, sphero robots, all the way down to little tiny, mini robots that go onto a desktop. So if you find, I would say, that company or area that you want to work in, I can guarantee you within that area or that company that you find that you're passionate for, you are going to find a STEM job that's really.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Okay, your mother has any question? Yes, ma'am. Do you want to ask something? Okay, I think some network problem. Okay, now I'm inviting Adityam of Standard 8, very dynamic student of Standard 8, Adityam. Kumar Adityam, Standard 8.
Ma'am, I am audible?
Yes, yes, Adityam. Yes, Adityam.
Good morning.
Okay, ask your question. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. So my question is that many students find chemistry difficult. So how important is the part played by chemistry as compared to the other subjects in the STEM?
Dr. Roy and Ms. Almodovar, would you like to take that? Just like
I'll go quickly. I was going to say, whoever. I think it really just depends on your field, on what it's going to do. I know, again, following what I do within my programs, I teach a portion that's chemistry, where the kids get to do different experiments and things like that. So the amount of chemistry involved is going to depend on the field that you choose. So, and I see Dr. Roy, kind of shaking his head also. So I'm going to pass it over to him, but I really think it just depends on the field that you decide on the amount of chemistry that's involved in it.
Well, I totally agree with Melissa. I mean, for me, the chemistry is crucial because that's what I study. And of course, I'm a little bit biased as a chemist. But certainly there are fields. I know if you're going into math, if you're going into technology, you may not need a lot of chemistry. If you're going into things that are more biological, medically related, then chemistry becomes much more important. But you made a really good statement at the beginning. Often middle school, high school students find chemistry incredibly difficult. And I struggle with that. I actually taught middle school and high school for a little while, and the idea was to try to, I think often we think of this idea of trying to memorize, and memorization is not the way to learn the science. It's actually taking the time to try to understand the foundational aspects of it, especially when you're in middle school and high school, the foundations of physical and natural science. And Dr. Jeffrey, I loved what he had to say about the way we regurgitate that and embracing failure. I mean, these are really important. I smile. I was just in a meeting with one of my co-deans, and they were talking about failure, and they were in a totally different discipline and just kind of shaking their head about failure. And I just smiled because embracing failure, embracing the struggle is really important, because that's how we learn. But as far as the chemistry, it is a foundational science, but it really depends. Melissa was dead on. It really depends on what area in the STEM fields you go into.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Aditya. Okay, now I'm inviting another student of Standard 8, Amukta. Amukta of Standard 8.
Good morning, everyone. So my question is, how can we find job opportunities for branches of engineering like biomedical and biochemical?
Dr. Roy, would you like to take this first, and then Ms. Almodovar, you can add?
I mean, the opportunities again. I mean, with the STEM fields and the challenges we face from everything from, I mean, and Dr. Jeffrey did such a fantastic job of this. I'm a little embarrassed. From battery technology to the medical aspects of things. I mean, biomedical engineering. I think you mentioned biochemistry. I mean, these are foundational basic sciences that are important in so many different fields. I think that the opportunities, and I think we're seeing that more and more, especially with the pandemic. The importance of having a background in a biology or chemistry field. There's just so much. There's so much to be studied, so much to be learned, and so much to be done. So I think those opportunities, how you find them, I mean, that's a sort of a different question, and it's kind of outside my expertise. But I think the fact that those opportunities have to be out there just because of the problems we face as the world faces, that certainly studying those fields, there will be opportunity for people who follow those passions.
I'll jump in there because we actually teach courses to girls within those areas on job hunting and college preparedness and things like that. So when you are looking for the job, again, I'm going to refer back to when I was saying, think about the companies that you want to work for. When I was looking for a job, and I'm sure Dr. Roy probably agrees, you want to work for people that you have the same mission. You want to be happy with what you do. So you want to believe in the mission statement of the company that you work for. I obviously I work for a nonprofit, so I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the ability of what I do every day. So you have to enjoy that work. So find the company. Within every company, there's a section called careers. So there is that little button on every website. And we are so fortunate to live in the day and age that we do now for you young people, that you have the internet. And I could look for a job in India from my home in North Carolina, and you could look for a job here in North Carolina from your home in India. And we have that opportunity back in our day. I mean, I may look young, but I'm probably about as old as Mr. Roy here. You know, I remember that first dot matrix printer and all of those things. So we didn't have those opportunities. Computers were just, first being engineered. We didn't, the World Wide Web was first being designed. We wanted a job. We were walking in with a paper application and a resume into a building trying to get a job. So you guys have this vast opportunity. You research the subject that you're looking for a job in, and I can guarantee you that you're going to find it. And there's so many job engineering sites now, and there's business sites. We all know about Facebook, but there's a business site that called LinkedIn that you could create a business profile that actually business professionals go on and look to what we call headhunt. So companies actually physically go out looking for people that they're trying to find to put in certain positions within their company. So you create a LinkedIn profile, and maybe maybe Dr. Roy's looking for an assistant or somebody within his company. He may go into LinkedIn and look for somebody within that LinkedIn profile that might fit his description. So with today's day and age, there's so many opportunities. I fall back to find that company that has that mission statement that you're looking for, look in their career section, and I'm sure that even if it's an entry-level position, that you can get your foot in the door and work your way up to where you Amukta, I hope you got your answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Amukta? Okay, thank you, Amukta.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, now I'm inviting Samriddhi Shakti of Standard 9. Samriddhi Shakti of Standard 9. Samriddhi?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you here?
Warm and pleasant good morning. This is Samriddhi Shakti Singh. Dear ma'am and sir, which technology do you think will shape humanity in the next decade?
Ms. Almodovar, if you'd like to maybe talk a little bit about this first, and then Dr. Roy, you can add.
kind of missed what she said. Is like I heard which technology.
Which technology do you believe will shape the future the most, or?
Computer.
Amriti, you are talking about which technology?
Yeah.
Yes, ask your question again, Samriddhi.
Yes, ma'am.
About which technology you are asking? Ask your question again.
Which technology do you think will shape humanity in the next decade?
Okay, will shape humanity in next decade. Okay, yes.
And I always tend to follow under computer science technologies, and that's just because it is such an advancing technology, and every day is something new. Like I can buy something today, and that is obsolete as of tomorrow. Computer technologies is so advancing, it's unreal. Going to virtual, opening up the world of realities, really ongoing, and I'm sure Dr. will, probably elaborate more on this in his field. The abilities that computers have, not only to help in everybody's aspect in all fields, especially when it comes to research for medical purposes and things like that. It is crucial to have those step forward computer technologies that kind of are the basis for everything else that we all need it. And like I said, every day is such a change in that field and steps and leaps and bounds forward. And if you look at the timeline from the conception of computers to now, and the rapid development from then to now, and leaps and bounds that they make. I mean, if you look, I'm sure Dr. Royal remember, think about the cell phone from our day and age. This is the size of cell phone now. The cell phone that was originally created back in the 80s and 90s was huge. It was like carrying a phone book on the side of your head, so if you think about that, and that's only 10, 15 years there, I mean, think about alone, and now we're holding literally computers in our hands every time we hold our phone. So, I mean, for me, I would have to say computer technology. So I'll throw it over to Dr. Roy.
Computer science is what came to mind immediately when that question was asked. I mean, Melissa, you were perfect. I mean, it's such a supportive science. It's such a supportive technology as well. I mean, the use of computers in all of the STEM fields, engineering, mathematics. I mean, my discipline has been advanced so quickly. It's exponential because of the advancements we've seen in technology and in computer and certainly in computers. I mean, cell phones. I must be older than you because we didn't. Gosh, cell phones. We had a rotary dial phone. I'd probably have to teach you guys how to use that.
I remember the analog rotary phones. I do remember those too, but I just remember the creation of the first cell phone.
I grew up in Vermont and pretty rural. I mean, these guys don't even know what a party line is, where it rang, the phone was shared right off of different. So absolutely computer science, not to take up too much time, but here's the thing about that. Don't go into that because you think that that's the best way to get a job. I mean, you have to be passionate about something. To really excel at something, you have to be vested in it. You have to love it. So if that form of technology, computer science, computer technology is something you're really fascinated with, then absolutely. And it is a very supportive area. Not to mention it's got its own development areas. I mean, quantum dot computing. I mean, the things that are going on in that area of technology are just fascinating.
Those were great responses. Just to add on to that, I think, it's important to note that technology is seen in all aspects of life in STEM. And so like inventions like the 3D printed heart, it's medicinal, but it's also technological. So it's great to look at it that way as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Samriddhi, if your father want to ask something, then he can ask.
Can I ask a question, ma'am?
Of course. Yes, sir. Yes, of course. You can ask.
Industrial biochemistry is all about. Industrial biochemistry.
Dr. Roy, would you like to take this question?
I'm sorry. Did you hear the question? Could you repeat it for me, Magan?
Industrial biochemistry, like what is it about? And
industrial biochemistry. So this is so if I'm understanding you correctly, this is the idea of looking at things like using algae as fuels. And I mean, industrial biochemistry is outside of my area of expertise. But the looking at biological processes that might give us alternative fuels, I mean, some of the stuff that I do is actually could be considered if we could scale up some of the biochemistry to a level where we're actually producing a drug. Certainly that's an area that's sort of industrial biochemistry and chemical engineering. The two areas sort of overlap.
Is it related to green chemistry anyway?
Again, it's breaking up. Did you hear that, Maga?
Is it
Please repeat.
I'm sorry, I can't hear the question.
Yes, sir. Please ask your question again.
Yeah, is it related to green chemistry?
Sure.
Green chemistry. Okay.
Green chemistry can be looked at a lot of different ways. I mean, one of the things we look at in green chemistry is the use of solvents that don't necessarily affect the environment, being more thoughtful in our experiments, being more thoughtful in the way we do industrial processes. So we're not putting perchloroethylene into the atmosphere. So a lot of you guys may know about these new forms of dry cleaning where they don't use, I hate this word, but toxic chemicals. So green chemistry can be looked at from the ways of thinking about processes where the byproducts are not as harmful to the environment, and actually doing science that uses solvents that are less, solvents in general, solvents that are less toxic as well. And looking for processes that give us byproducts that aren't contributing to climate change, global warming, and things like that as well.
Yeah, helping reduce the environmental footprint, isn't it? I mean, I don't know a lot about it. That's more your field than mine. But isn't it like an industry helping to find areas to reduce the environmental footprint? You know, renewable plant resources, things like that.
Yep, absolutely, and that's outside my field too. Like I said, when you get a PhD in something, you know a lot about a very small amount of material. So,
anyway, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Samriddhi. Now I'm inviting Akriti Arnav of Standard 9. Akriti Arnav. Akriti Arnav and her parents.
Good morning. This particularly interested me a lot. I just wanted to ask that how is the workshop on STEM going to be beneficial for us as students?
How is she cut out. How is the what?
How is this workshop beneficial to the students? Correct?
Yes.
I can take this first.
Yes.
The primary goal for this webinar and this workshop is just for the students to be able to see what opportunities are out there in these STEM careers, and hopefully get you interested in pursuing them, because a lot of the times we don't know what's out there, and so we aren't able to make decisions about, like Dr. Roy said, what we're passionate about and what we want to pursue. So the goal with this webinar and this workshop is to kind of expose you to these careers and these opportunity pathways in STEM careers, and get you thinking about what you may want to pursue in the future. Dr. Roy and Ms. Almodovar, if you'd like to add anything.
I think go ahead, Roy.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think your answer was perfect. I mean, the idea is to just, get people excited about the STEM fields and start thinking about these as potential career paths.
Yeah, I was going to agree. I think it's to expose you to different things, obviously give you an opportunity to meet other people here that are in those different fields, and give you an opportunity to ask your questions about maybe the interest you have. It helps narrow down some of the questions.
Thank you.
Akriti, if your parent want to ask something, if your parent want to ask some question, then Akriti?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Akriti. Okay, Meghna, a few students have sent some queries to you. So
Yes.
please, give answer to all those queries.
Yes. So one question that we got that was repeated a couple of times from a couple of students is what potential careers in the military are in STEM. So Miss Almodovar was actually a soldier in the army. So if maybe you would like to address this question.
Wow. So almost every field that you can find within the civilian field, you're going to find within the military field. My specific job was I worked on the CCF, meaning a charging station for the Dragon Toe missile. It was a large vehicle that was literally computer run. It worked on a cooling system for a missile. So I would recharge these cooling systems and things like that, and work on AC systems and stuff like that within vehicles or within other things. So any type of field that you find within a civilian, you're most likely going to find within the military, with whether it be in computer communications, doctors. We've got everything within the military that you're going to find in a civilian field. So you think of the job there, we have there, even something like what I do. We have people that are liaisons within the military that run family readiness programs that do programs for children. So even something what I do on a daily basis for Girl Scouts, we have those type of things within the military.
That's great. Thank you so much. Another question that we got asked was just about astronomy, and especially since India is a developing nation, how you may find job opportunities in astronomy and the kind of classes you should take. So I'll start with, so India has various government agencies specialized in astronomy, and is one of the top 3 countries in the world in research and development in this area. And so some of these organizations include the Defense Research and Development Organization and ISRO. And so both my grandfathers actually worked as a part of ISRO as a scientist, and they were fortunate enough to work with Dr. Abdul Kalam and Dr. U.R. Rao. So I think definitely astronomy and anything to do with space is a upcoming field, and if you're interested in it, you should definitely pursue that. And I think courses in physics and especially math-based classes help a lot with preparing you for those areas. Dr. Roy or Ms. Almodovar, do you have anything to add to that?
Way outside my field. I don't think I've ever taken I've never even taken an astronomy course. So
well, I teach astronomy and space sciences, but I don't know anything about the education system over there. I mean, I can tell you again, when you're looking for something within that field, I can tell you, where you can go to look, and fall back to my answer earlier as far as researching the companies. But as far as the educational system and where to go for the education over there, out of my field, girl, you kind of knocked it out of the park there.
Yeah, so especially since most of us don't have any specialized knowledge in astronomy, but if you have any further questions, or if maybe I can connect you with someone who can answer it, please reach out to our email, which will be on the activities for the next week.
I can say that if you have access to the internet and you do enjoy astronomy, NASA has a wonderful site, NASA for Kids, that I use to teach and utilize when I teach my space and science programs, that has wonderful intel and wonderful guidance when you're looking for space and science information.
Okay, that's great. So definitely check out those resources. Those were primarily the questions that we were asked in the pre-activity. Ms. Rasmi?
Okay, Meghna, I hope you answer all the questions.
Yeah, so now I can start talking about the post-webinar activity. After this webinar, I will be sharing videos and experiment instructions to perform experiments in the next week for you, for the students. I will also have Google Forms attached that will need to be filled out, along with a short video of you performing the experiment. These experiments cover basic chemistry and biological concepts and how they can be applied in everyday life. And It will be shared with you on the school ERP Jaipuria now. So on that note, thank you, Dr. Roy, Ms. Almodovar, and Ms. Razmi, and to all the students, parents, and teachers of the Jaipuria School for participating in this webinar. I'm positive you have gained a lot of knowledge from Ms. Almodovar and Dr. Roy and Dr. Jeffrey, and I look forward to seeing all of the students next week at the closing webinar. If you have any questions over the course of the week, feel free to reach out to our email. It's restem.initiative@gmail.com. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, Meghna. Thank you, Meghna, Dr. Roy, Miss Almodovar, and all the students, parents, and all teachers of Jaipuria School for participating in this webinar. And I hope all students will send their projects and their activities to Meghna and make this workshop successful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. It was great talking with you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.